the universe has a better plan for me than I've got for myself. Of course, we need to plan and we need to take steps forward with our business. But actually, sometimes when one door closes, a way better one opens. And I think you don't know that unless you really surrender to the universe.
Abi is the CEO and driving force behind the Fertility Circle. Motivated by her own experience of trying for a baby, she wondered why there was so little support. With a passion for entrepreneurship, as well as a background in private equity and healthcare management consulting, Abi is a big believer in the power of community and the marriage of clinical and holistic support in fertility. In this episode, we talk about Abi's amazing journey from law, private equity and healthcare in the corporate world to finding her purpose, founding the Fertility Clinic, which brings community and expert support for people on their fertility journeys. You're listening to Going Conscious, the podcast where we discover new ways to live a more conscious life of fulfillment and freedom. Each week, I speak with entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers who have made big transformations, left unfulfilling lives behind, and found meaning in this new world where purpose drives success. Let's get inspired to live our unique journeys to the fullest. Let's explore the impact we want to make and deepen our understanding of ourselves, each other, and this beautiful world around us. Live your freedom. I'm your host, Nikki Trott. In this episode, we talk about how meditation helped Abi find her calling, how she realized that what she was doing wasn't serving her, and the drastic changes she made, the consequences of not listening to her gut, and finding the grounding feeling of listening, experiencing an Ayurvedic cleanse in India, how becoming a mother was the biggest transformation she's been through, redefining success internally and externally, looking for balance in life, and the importance of surrendering to the universe. Now, let's go to our conversation. Welcome, Abi, to Going Conscious.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Really lovely to be here.
I'm really excited to dive into your story a bit more and would love to start by asking about how you went on your journey from corporate jobs and different positions that you held to then finding your calling.
Yes, it's difficult to know where to start, actually. So maybe the best place to start is to give you a bit of a timeline on my career, I suppose, to date and where I've gone. And what I found is that there's been quite a lot of transitions in that time, and each one has got me closer to where I wanted to go, I suppose, and where I am now. And each one has been a massive learning experience, I think. So is that a helpful place to start?
That sounds great.
Okay, fab. So I started off my career in investment banking, actually, in private equity, not where I thought I would be at all. I studied law at university and thought I was going to be a human rights lawyer. And then I left uni, had an awful breakup straight after uni, and decided I would move abroad to Australia and study again. And on the way, I stopped off in the Middle East to work in a law firm there for somebody I knew and give them a bit of support. And met a man, as is always the story, right? And ended up staying in the Middle East and working in a law firm for a little while. And then I moved to a bank where I started working in private equity quite randomly. I don't think I would ever have done that if it wasn't for that kind of chain of events that happened immediately beforehand. And I ended up staying in the Middle East for about 4 years. I broke up with that guy that I had met at the beginning, which was clearly a fallout from my previous relationship. So lots of learnings on relationships at the same time, as is always in life, I suppose. But I worked in private equity that whole time, and I didn't love it at all, but I was getting to travel a lot. I was learning a lot of skills that I, didn't really know anything about. And so from that perspective, it was good. And I also met really, really amazing people in the Middle East and had so much fun there. But there was sort of a time I was traveling a lot, and I've been over in Switzerland for about 6 months, and I came back to the Middle East and realized I really needed to leave. And I think often a lot of people that go to the Middle East get stuck there. and you have to listen to the calling that it's really, really time to go. Luckily, I managed to do that. And I then moved to Switzerland for a bit and worked in a bank that I'd been helping and supporting during my time in the Middle East over there. Stayed in Switzerland for about a year. And then I moved back to London and did some consulting still for some banks in kind of investment banking. And this had taken me kind of from, I suppose, post uni to around my late 20s. But I was really feeling that itch to do something different. I just didn't know what it was. I'd kind of given up on the law dream. But I was yearning for something, but I just was struggling to find it. So I then found a program called On Purpose, which is all about people transitioning from often a corporate career into something more meaningful, really. And that could be anything. It could be something charitable, social enterprise, entrepreneurial, a whole range of different things. And it's really a year of sort of exploring yourself and what you want in life. And you get mentoring and coaching, and you work in different socially focused organizations. So I did that for a year. That was also another great learning experience, but it didn't get me to the answer of what I wanted in my life. And so I left that and ended up working in a placement that I'd had during that time, and moved into basically management consulting in healthcare, which was a step in the right direction because I'd always been interested in healthcare, and I was particularly interested in mental health, and I ended up sort of specializing in children's mental health. So I was doing a lot of kind of strategy around that area and developing new structures for treating children with mental health issues. So it was interesting, but I had still had this kind of yearning to do something different, really kind of do something for myself, I suppose. But I didn't know what that was. I had so many ideas. I don't know if you're one of these kind of ideas people, but I always have ideas for things. And I just wasn't quite sure which one to run with. And so I then, well, basically just carried on doing the consulting, feeling that I suppose the impact of what I was doing was very far removed from the actual impact on the patient really. So I was writing endless PowerPoints as management consultants do, and I wasn't really convinced these were having any kind of impact on the kind of end patient. So I felt like I need to do something different. But during this time, I'd also been trying to get pregnant, which really sort of leads us to where I am today. And I struggled, it was a really, really tough time. It took us about 3 years to get pregnant, and we got pregnant by IVF in the end. And during that time, it's a really lonely and isolating experience. And I just felt there was something better that could be done to support people going through that, because it is a really life-changing thing. And actually having a child is one of those things that if you want it for yourself, and of course not everyone does, but if you do, it's fundamental to being human in lots of ways. And if you can't have it, it's really, really tough. So that has kind of got me to the business today that I'm working on. But there's so many transitions during that time. And now I feel like I'm really driven by what I'm doing. I'm motivated to get up in the morning. I'm excited to work on it. I feel I have purpose. And I really love what I'm doing. It's taken me many moves in my career to get here, but I'm really excited about life now and what I'm working on now. That was quite a long summary, sorry.
No, it was great to hear. It's always so interesting to hear how all of the different life events and, like you say, relationships and where we move, all of these different things combine to create the path that we take. And, it's wonderful to hear how now you found your purpose, and it would be great to understand a bit more about that. And so was there a key moment or something that was your last straw that led you to make this shift and make this change from your last managing consulting job into starting your own business?
Yes, definitely. I guess there was a big shift that took me out of the management consulting, I think. So as I said, I'd been a bit disillusioned with it anyway and had been struggling. And I got into meditation, I think about 8 years ago now. And I had been meditating a lot, going on a lot of retreats, a week away or a weekend away, doing lots of meditation. And I believe it was on one of these retreats or shortly after, I just had this moment during meditation where I felt as though I had to leave. It was just this inner knowing of you just need to go. And I find that when things come to me in meditation, it's really silly to ignore them. um, so I often sit with it for a little while longer just to make sure that it's, a true kind of calling. And and I realized it was. And actually, aside from the, desire to get pregnant, it just wasn't serving me what I was doing. So once I had that, I actually acted quite quickly. And I'd been advised by my meditation teacher at the time that they thought I should go and do panchakarma in India, which is basically an Ayurvedic cleanse. That makes it sound quite simple, but it's a real in-depth kind of mind-body program, really. And that is kind of what had called me, I suppose, in the meditation. I'd realized that I needed to do something drastic. I needed to leave what I was doing, and I needed to go to India to do this program. So I think I felt that it was October of 2016, I think it was. I'm getting my years mixed up. I think it was 2016. And then I left in January. So basically, a few weeks later, I quit. And then I left right at the beginning of January to go to India.
Wow. Sounds amazing, just being in meditation and listening to your intuition and really knowing that that was the right path for you. But what was the hardest bit, or was it scary to make that shift?
It followed on from a time, a really tricky time around fertility, where I had had some surgery not long before, and it was surgery to sort of do some fertility investigations, and that surgery had gone wrong, and he perforated my bowel in the process, unfortunately. And I was in hospital for about 3 weeks, and I was also recovering for like months and months after that. So in fact, when I went back to work, I went back to work in September, and I got this realization in October. So it was not long after I'd been back. But what I had done in that process of having this surgery is that I'd really not listened to my gut. So a doctor had advised me, you need the surgery. Something had told me, this isn't quite right. Maybe you shouldn't do this. But I was so overcome with this desperation to take control of my fertility and to find answers and to move things along. I was so desperate and vulnerable, basically, that I didn't listen to my gut, and I went ahead with the surgery. And the consequences were obviously actually lifelong consequences for me, actually, because it was obviously surgery on my bowel. And, it was almost like immediate karma for sort of not listening to my gut. And so actually, I found it easy to do this time because I had ignored it previously, and it had such huge consequences for me that I felt I couldn't ignore it this time. So the decision was so much simpler. And I also felt I had a lot of healing to do, both in kind of mind, soul, body terms after that surgery, because it was such a huge thing, that it was a relatively easy decision for me. It meant taking, 4 months away from my partner. That was a bit harder to do, but he's super supportive, and knew that it was the right thing for me. So kind of we made it happen. But that decision was easier than some. It was just such clear guidance that I needed to do it.
What does guidance feel like to you?
What a good question. So when you ask me that question, I feel something in my gut. So, and I think it is a feeling, it's almost a grounding. So I have this tendency maybe to be a bit flighty and a bit sort of, I just follow things sometimes without really thinking about them. And maybe that's the right thing. Maybe you're following your intuition then, but I'm not sure that I am sometimes. But this was almost like a message that came to me. You need to leave. And then there was a knowing in my body and really in my heart, and also in my gut, a grounding that this was the right thing to do. So it felt really grounded in I suppose like some kind of universal energy for like, I don't know the best way to describe it. So I would say it was a message effectively, but then a real knowing in my body that that was the right thing to do. That's probably not very well
Mm.
described, but
I
I
think that's
think
a
that's,
lovely way to describe it. It really resonates with me a lot. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's so interesting. It's such a different type of listening when it's really sitting. I love the way you use the word grounding, because it's sitting in your body, in your gut. It's holding you there and it's not fleeting.
yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
in the mind, you can be kind of skipping around and pulled in all directions and reacting to chemicals and emotions. But when the gut knows, it just knows.
Yeah, yeah. And it's taken me a long time to tune into that, I think. And like you said, I can be very much, and I'm getting over it. It's a constant learning curve, I think, but I can be very much in my mind. And I've had a lot of problems with sleep in the past. And that's one of the reasons I started meditating. And that all that stuff is so much better for me now. But I know I have a tendency to overthink things. I am for sure a recovering perfectionist. I like to have control of things, I like to lead things. So I know all those things about myself. So when I feel that in my body, I know that I've got to listen to it because sometimes, I can be overthinking things sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. It does take learning. It's practicing again and again. I mean, in my early 20s, I had no idea about this at all. I didn't even separate the different messages or the different types of knowing. I knew I trusted my intuition, but I didn't really know what that meant. And then
Yeah,
it's a constant learning and, where we find ourselves today. And of course, we'll continue to develop that. And I agree, meditation really helps as well to bring so much more clarity.
definitely. I think it's been huge for me. And I wonder where I would be now if I hadn't started meditating, actually.
So, how is meditation part of your daily or weekly life and practice?
So since I started meditating, I started doing Vedic meditation, which is very similar to transcendental meditation. So it's effectively, you're given a mantra by your teacher and you kind of silently and effortlessly repeat that mantra in your mind for 20 minutes twice a day. So I did that for a long time and I really got into that kind of Vedic way of life. And I did a lot of advanced courses. And I loved it, and it was a huge part of my life. It's a big community, actually. I've met a lot of really close friends through that. Panchakarma is also related to that school of meditation, to the Vedic school. And but then I in the last, I think actually when I was pregnant, I started moving away from Vedic. I just felt drawn to other things, and I really do believe that there are so many incredible meditation and healing tools and philosophies out there that I like the kind of mix and match approach of pulling together what I feel drawn to and what I'm finding useful in my life at that time. So I sort of moved away from Vedic at that point, and it has served me so amazingly, and I'm like forever grateful actually for that experience in my life. And I then just started trying out different types of meditation. So I was doing kind of breathing meditation sometimes, I was doing guided meditation sometimes. I then had a baby and learned that was she's the biggest spiritual teacher I'll ever have. And also, I really needed to change the way I meditated because of her, because I was waking up a lot in the night and didn't have so much time. So I did stop meditating for a while. But in the last year, I think I've really got back into it. So now for me, it looks like a 20 to 30-minute meditation in the morning, which is sort of a Zen Buddhist meditation. I use a bit of a mantra sometimes, it's breathing, so it's a combination of different things. And I've also started using this meditation device, which sounds really strange, but it's called Sensate, and it basically vibrates on your chest and it stimulates your vagus nerve. So it really stimulates the relaxation response. And whilst you've got that on, you also listen to music that's designed to go with it, a range of different kind of sounds, and it's ultra relaxing. And I'm just really enjoying that. It's quite a new thing for me. I've only had it for about a month or so. And I'm really enjoying combining that with my other meditation. So now, nearly like 95% of mornings, I will get that meditation in, and it's my it's my thing that I have to do. My partner's super supportive, and he always takes my daughter in the morning so I can meditate. And it's kind of a non-negotiable for me. If I'm feeling stressed during the day, sometimes I would also do maybe a 10-minute meditation with the Sensei device, just as a bit of a kind of relaxation, a quick relaxation tool, basically. So that is really all I'm able to fit in right now. But I'm really yearning now to actually go on a retreat. My daughter's just getting to the age where I feel happy to kind of leave her for a longer period of time. So I'm feeling as though I need to go and do something else, but I'm not quite sure what it looks like yet. I think fitting these things in when you have a child, you learn that it's just, you need to be adaptable and you need to just work with whatever's happening on any given day. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but it's all about kind of the consistency and just the commitment to trying to get it done.
Amazing. And can you tell us a bit more about your time in India and how it benefited you?
Yes, absolutely. So really, one of the main reasons I went there was to work on my fertility. So I think that fertility is a really complex issue for many people. And I felt as though there were some blocks spiritually to my fertility, as well as I had medical problems as well. So, physically, mechanically, I had issues. But equally, I think there were some blocks around receptivity for me that were not helping with me conceiving and, holding space for that child that was, going to come and I was going to provide that home for. So I kind of went there with this view of I wanted to work on my physical body and try and prep that as much as possible, especially having had that surgery, 6 months beforehand. But also I wanted to work on myself spiritually. So they actually run a fertility program. It's at a clinic in Hyderabad, in India, with quite a famous Vedic family, and they run. It's effectively a 4 to 8 week program. Usually, I think I stayed for about 7.5 weeks, and there are some incredibly wonderful elements to it. So every day you get, an Ayurvedic massage, which is, two women giving a massage at the same time, a synchronized massage. It's just amazing. So you get that every day, and then they schedule in a series of treatments for you over that time based on your individual situation. So they take your pulse every day, and you see a Vedic doctor every morning. They take your pulse and then they write down your schedule for the day. So you're doing all sorts of things, from like these water treatments where they're pouring hot water all over your body for like an hour, through to the massages every day, and lots of treatments with ghee, so which is clarified butter, which obviously they use a lot in India and Indian cooking, but it's also used a lot in treatments over there. So, for example, they might pour hot ghee onto parts of your body where they want to sort of extract toxins or something. They also do this treatment, which sounds quite horrific, but they pour hot ghee, into a mask over your eyes and try and cleanse your eyes effectively with this hot ghee.
Wow.
Which is intense. Not my favorite treatment out of all of them, actually. And they also do, ones where they'll pour like hot milk over your forehead for a long time. And it's super relaxing. And then I also obviously did a lot of meditation in that time, a lot of yoga, and a lot of reading, and just sort of being with myself and trying to listen to my intuition more, and listening to messages, and trying to work on some probably unresolved trauma. And in fact, I've forgotten that I did a breathwork retreat right at the beginning of that. So before I went to do Panchakarma, I went to Goa and I did a week of breath work, which I always describe, for me, it was like 10 years of therapy in a week. And it was intense, so intense, where we did kind of group therapy sessions effectively in the morning, and then we did breath work every afternoon. And I did that before going into Panchakarma, which I think was great to release a lot of trauma, but equally, it brought up a lot for me, obviously. So I went into that Panchakarma quite raw and had a lot to process, I think, from that week beforehand.
Wow. Sounds incredible. And so how did this experience then lead to your fertility journey personally and then your founding of your company?
Yes. So I was there for like the 8 weeks as I described, and I was there. It's basically you go for 2 cycles of your natural cycle. So I was there for 2 periods effectively, and they treat you with fertility stuff during that time. So then I left there feeling like super cleansed, ready. I decided to do a bit of traveling around India and Asia. My partner came to meet me in the Philippines, so we had some like lovely holidays and did some great things. I came back and decided that I was in a place like ready to go straight into treatment, basically. And I had been given a 15% chance of IVF working, which for my age is, at that time, I was 35 at the time, is low, and but I was feeling just this knowing. And in fact, I'd had an experience in Panchakarma, which is one of the final experiences that they kind of give you, which is where, again, ghee is involved. They wrap you up in hot flannels, and they pour ghee down your hot ghee down your nose, and you're basically left there for like hours and hours and hours until they feel it's right for you to come out. And in that time, I really felt as though I felt my child. And so I came out of that with this knowing that it was going to be okay. And I never had that before. I'd always had this fear driving me, even with all my meditation and all that work that I'd done. I still had this inner fear, like, what if I'm one of the people that it just doesn't happen for? And everyone kept saying to me, no, it will happen eventually. But I always kept saying, but sometimes it doesn't. Maybe I'm one of those people. And that fear had always been there. But I came out of Panchakarma with a knowing that it was going to happen. And I went into IVF with that knowing, and I really just kept coming back to that. And I think my partner was actually quite worried because he was saying that, there's a very small chance it's going to work, and lots of people have to do many rounds, and, we don't know it's going to work. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. I just know. And it worked for us first time, which is, unusual that it works first time, especially with our chances. And so I feel really grateful. We now have our daughter. And, I think that the Panchakarma was instrumental actually in my mindset and knowing that would happen. And during the time when I'd been trying, I had, as I said, been feeling really lonely, really vulnerable. And I also, in my like perfectionist kind of way of being and in my trying to take control of everything, I'd also been like trying to do so many things. I'd done acupuncture, I'd done like nutrition stuff, I'd done Chinese herbs, I'd done, everything you could possibly think of for fertility, I had done it. So I had spent loads of money, and also not wasted. I'd spent a lot of time on Google researching all of this, and was quite tired from all that process actually. And so I felt during that time, surely there's something better that can be done to support people. Like, this is such a difficult time. Why isn't there something out there that people can go to, which provides credible information, which connects people with experts that they can get advice from, which, really just provides people with a community of peer support as well. So I got thinking about the idea, and I started working up a bit of an MVP, website during that time, and, what a product. Then I got totally distracted by a newborn baby, and I really wanted to give my time fully to that. And I'd been, so desperate for it for so long that I took an extended time off. So I was off fully for at least 18 months, and I loved that time. And then, but by the time that was through, I sort of started thinking, okay, what do I want my life to look like? And I think the transition to motherhood is probably the biggest transition I've had by by far, compared to any of the transitions in my life and my career. And you really change your perspective on things, and like who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world and what drives you. And I realized that I needed, if I was going to take time away from my daughter, I needed it to be for something with purpose, that I felt driven by and that I love doing. So I came back to this idea of the Fertility Circle, as it's called. And I also met through NCT, in fact, another mum, Karen, who has had the most phenomenal fertility journey. And we got speaking about my idea and she loved it. And so we started working on it together. And we started working on it beginning of last year. And we developed a website during that time and started speaking to the community and understanding what people wanted. And then this year, a couple of months ago, we launched an app, which is all about supporting people with their fertility based on what people really told us they wanted in that space. And we've also had another co-founder come and join us, Jo, who I met during On Purpose, which I described at the beginning, which is that kind of leadership program. So we met during that time and she's come on board as well to join us with the Fertility Circle. And we're super excited about what we can bring for people who are experiencing fertility issues.
Incredible. What a story. I'm wondering, how much do you think your mindset of knowing that you were going to get pregnant affected your becoming pregnant in the very first time of IVF?
100%, I think it had an impact. I mean, clearly I needed IVF, right? So mechanically I needed IVF. It wasn't going to happen for me otherwise. So I don't think any amount of knowing could have helped me naturally as much as I would have loved to get pregnant naturally. But I think having that knowing really, I think that's what made it happen for us first time with IVF. And that's not to say that all the time I was super positive about it and I, was overcome with this knowingness and this like all the time while we were going through fertility issues or IVF, because it's a tough time, right? You're pumping your body full of hormones, you're emotional, you feel tired, you don't feel great. So, but what I did do when I started to feel overwhelmed by those sorts of things was I meditated and I just then returned to that grounding and that knowing. And it's the kind of grounding that I was describing before of you feel it in your body, you feel it. And it's like in your womb, basically, right? Which is where often you feel it. And I tried to often just do a connection between my heart and my womb. And that I felt sort of just lightened me and made me feel better in that process. But I do really feel that it was a huge part of why I became pregnant first time. And I don't say that to many people in the space, actually, because, I think only certain people will appreciate that. But I think it was a huge part. And it's also why in the Fertility Circle, we are kind of marrying together the holistic and the clinical side of fertility, because it was a huge part of my journey. And I also believe that it's really important for so many people, and it looks different for different people, right? For some people it might just be they're tweaking some of their lifestyle elements in order to support their IVF. For other people it might be they go much deeper into a spiritual journey whilst they're trying to conceive as well, and they maybe work on some of those blocks that they've got spiritually as well. They might get into meditation. We have a lot of meditation on our app that people can do. We have a couple of experts who are meditation teachers, really fabulous one based out of LA, who also has the most incredible fertility journey, and she's a meditation teacher and specializes in fertility. So it's one of the reasons why the Fertility Circle looks how it does, because it was such an essential part of my journey and I think my getting pregnant as well. So yeah, huge, I think.
Can you tell us a bit more then about how the Fertility Circle merges that holistic and medical approach together?
Yes, definitely. So I think the first thing is that we have a lot of what we call resident experts. So we have about 50 different experts that we work with, and they support users in the app to answer questions. They run events for us. They provide amazing content. And those experts range from, the super clinical, as in your consultant in fertility, through to lots of holistic practitioners. So I think probably at least 80%, 75 to 80% of our experts are holistic practitioners. So they're acupuncturists, they are nutritionists that really work on in a holistic way. They're coaches, they're meditation teachers. and they work, they're massage therapists, and they all work in that space. So really, we're all about introducing people to some of those elements that they just don't know about. A lot of people, when they go through fertility, either they just don't reach out for help professionally at all, or they just go straight to GP and end up doing IVF. And they don't do any of that kind of pre-work, which is around lifestyle and holistic fertility, to really either help them get pregnant naturally, which can happen a lot if people optimize some of those lifestyle things, or actually, even if they need to have IVF, it really puts them in the right place before IVF. So really, it's about educating people on the different things that are available, and also empowering people to make, really our key thing is that we're empowering people to make the right fertility choices for them. So, and we do that through information, through support, and through connection. And so really, it's providing people with information and access to experts and fellow kind of community, I suppose, that helps them in that way, I think. So that's the way we go about it. And we have, of course, loads of free meditations on the app, lots of like mindset kind of tools and things to help people. And it's really a case of, as I think is the case with lots of meditation and healing work, that people can try out different things and they can see what really works for them, and they can leave the rest, So it's really about trying out and seeing what's best for you.
How does the community connection part work?
So at the moment,
sounds like that's also really important.
Yeah, and it's actually one of those things that, so we did some research earlier in the year to really find out what it was that other people wanted from platform, because myself and Karen had our own ideas, but we wanted to make sure we were, on the right track. And so, as I said, we're working off an MVP app right now, so a minimum viable product app, and it's only been launched for 2 months. So we've kind of got the basics really of what we want, but currently it looks like chat walls where people can go in to different topics and talk about their experiences. So, we might have a solo mums chat wall, we might have a donor conception chat wall, we'll have an IVF first timers, we'll have a trying to conceive naturally chat wall, and people can go on there and chat with each other about their experiences, what they're going through, how they're feeling. We're also starting up some support groups. So we have some people called app champions who really help us within the app with supporting users, with starting conversations. And they are people who are going through fertility issues currently or have been through them very, very recently. And we're also hoping to start running some support groups with them around their areas of interest. So someone might run a support group on, say, secondary infertility, for example. So people who've had a baby but are struggling second time to have a baby. And so I think we'll start up some of those support groups. And I think we'll continue to run events. And at some point in the future, that might look like, hopefully some in-person events. We would love to run some really holistic fertility retreats. We have so many ideas for what we could do around that community piece, as well as, of course, just connecting people with experts, which they're finding really, really valuable too. So yeah, the peer support and the expert support kind of happens there, and lots of ways that we can develop it in the future. But we're going to see how it goes and see what people are really using, actually, and then iterate based on what people tell us they like and what they need.
If you enjoy Going Conscious, please subscribe for a new episode every Wednesday. If you think your friends and networks would benefit from listening, please share this podcast of fulfillment and freedom with them. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's great to read what you think, and your support makes a big difference. Together, let's grow our courage and tools to transform and live the lives we really want to. As well as creating Going Conscious, I work as a transformation coach and conscious brand consultant. I'm on a mission to help holistically maximize conscious entrepreneurs to drive positive changes for themselves, others, and the planet. I can help you to transition and level up personally, and I can help your brand grow and make a bigger impact. To connect with me and find out more about how we can work together, find me on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, and let's talk about your path of growth and development. And how has your life changed since you started running the Fertility Circle?
Yeah, massively. So I suppose that it's It's a real juggling act right now. That's, I think, the thing, if I was trying to describe my life in a couple of words right now, it would be juggling, because I'm juggling, being a mum and trying to be really present in that role. And I also want to be there. I don't want to be, and it's absolutely fine that lots of people, go to work and work their day jobs and come back, but that's not what I wanted for my life. And so what I really want is to have a flexible life where I am able to be with her when I feel the need to, or when she needs me, but equally I'm able to also have something for myself that drives me. I realized relatively early on that I love being a mum, but I do need my own thing that I'm passionate about and that I'm doing for myself. And so right now it feels like Amber has just started going to an amazing little Montessori nursery, which I love, and so that's giving me some much more space to work on the Fertility Circle. So, but it feels busy a lot of the time, and I work early mornings, and then maybe I might look after Amber for a little bit, and then she might go to nursery, and then I'll work some more, and then maybe I will look after her for a little bit in the afternoon, and then I'll be back online again working at night. And we're doing a lot of events at night. We're working in the States a lot, so a lot of kind of late night stuff, which is fine, but can be quite tiring. I'm certainly feeling the end of the year kind of, a little bit depleted, really feeling that need for rest and recuperation right now. Ready to go into the new year, I think, but certainly feeling pretty tired. But I love it. I love the flexibility it offers, and I love that I can, that I do feel always on. But I don't mind that, and I'm happy to make that sacrifice for all the other benefits it brings.
And so how has success changed for you since your corporate days, and what does it look like to you now?
Yes, good question. So I suppose that it's a really tough one, actually. I'm trying to think how I was driven previously. So I suppose growing up, I'd always had this idea that I was going to be a lawyer for some reason. I don't know why it came to me, actually, but clearly I didn't go down that path. But growing up, academic success was what was important. Like, I was always really good at school. I always did really well, and I felt a little bit defined by that, actually. Particularly by my dad, who really reveled in that success, actually. And how it is with parents, you're kind of always trying to impress them, right? So every grade was something that he would be impressed by. Always driven by that, I think, a lot, growing up a lot. And then same at uni, and then obviously went into the corporate world, and was also driven by learning new things, and I guess making money at the time, because quite young I was earning really good money because I was working in investment banking, and had just kind of fallen into it. So there was definitely a drive around money, and I suppose status, because I had got a position that was quite high quite early, and it felt good at that time, I think. And I feel so far removed from that person that it's actually really hard for me to look back and think about what was driving me at that point, because I literally can't imagine it now. I cannot imagine being driven by those things, but I'm trying to think back and think how I did feel. So I think there was definitely a sort of going up the ladder, and I got this promoted to this role and promoted to this. But I obviously realised, I think, really mid to late 20s, that I didn't really care about that. And that's when I moved into sort of On Purpose and did that program. And then it still looked like success for me, I think. If I think about it, I think going into management consulting, I still was striving for that, senior position. I still wanted to be the one leading projects, So I was still striving at that point for that. Maybe it was status. I don't know. I think it probably was. It was a bit of status. It was, I suppose, feeling that I was always doing my best. As I said, I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I always want things to kind of be a certain way. I've always struggled with like delegating, probably, and so I think that's probably how it looked for me, like always doing the best job I could. Maybe it was about also, as I reflect now, making me look good. If the work I did was good, I looked good. So my value was coming from outside. It was people thinking that I was really smart, or thinking that I'd done a really good job. And again, like, it was a learning process and an evolution, really, as I was doing meditation, that really that just stuff wasn't important. It started to just fall away, I think. But I was obviously still working in that management consulting role. And but it was just becoming less and less important to me. I was still there, I was still doing the rock job, I was still doing a good job, but I didn't care so much. And then obviously I had that moment where I decided to leave, and I can almost feel it now, that sort of dropping away of all of those things as you almost leave. You know how like a snake sheds its skin is almost that feeling of like shedding that part of you. And then it happens again with motherhood, right? Because you're used to being driven by status and all these and success really, and people looking at you as a successful person. And suddenly, I'm not doing anything, right? I quit my job. I'd done a few bits of consulting here and there to support mainly colleagues and old contacts out. And so that was during pregnancy. And so, but I didn't have anything that I could fall back on. I'm like, who am I really? And so now it's been really redefining like what drives me, what does success look like now? And really it feels, what I want is for Fertility Circle to be successful, but it's not for myself and for my status. It's for it to be a place. It's so it can hold space for other people and that it can support other people in their journey. So it feels both externally driven in that it's not about me and my status, but internally driven in that it's right for me and it's what I know I should be doing. So success now looks for me like balancing my life, which I'm probably not doing a very good job of right now. But when I say that, what I mean is living a flexible life that means that I can, factor in my family priorities as well as my work priorities, but also having a successful business that's supporting other people, really.
Thank you for such a wonderful, honest answer. I think so many people will be able to resonate with that, and that shift of success from kind of external values and ideas which are put on you to then understanding actually what really matters to you and moving to a purpose that's so much bigger than yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Very nicely put. I waffled on a lot there, but that's exactly what it is. Very, very concisely. Exactly.
I really enjoyed hearing your answer. Thank you. And so as we come to the end of our discussion today, is there a key takeaway or message from our conversation that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so actually I think what I've taken away is how much things have changed for me. I suppose I haven't had this chance to really reflect on my life and my career at all. So it's been really nice to talk it through and actually realize that what's driving me now is different, and realize how I'm such a different person from how I was back then, as in, let's say, in my 20s, let's say. And it feels really nice. It sits nicely with me to be in this place now. And it's also made me think about those values and about how there are some things in my life that are still not kind of how I want them to be, and that's mainly probably around my balance in terms of like working too much and that sort of stuff, and that probably is related to that old part of me, right? That's still thriving. And so what I'm going to take away is that I'm going to try and take some rest over Christmas and really rebalance that part of my life so that I'm kind of the best version of me for my business and for my family and for myself, of course. But yes, I think that's been a really nice takeaway for me to go away and think about.
Wonderful. Thank you. And has there been a book you read recently and loved that you'd like to share?
Yes. So do you know what? Since having my daughter, I have not read, hardly. I've read some brilliant parenting books, but I haven't read many books. I just haven't had time. But the one book I would mention is probably one that I read in Panchakarma, and it's called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And I love it. So good, right? And the reason I, choose that one is partly because it's, one that I read during my fertility journey, and the message behind it around surrender is such an important, almost a mantra for me now, right? And it really helps me when I think back to how I'm constantly trying to perfect things and or really take control of stuff. Because actually, when I surrendered to the universe in terms of fertility, actually, this is what, all the good things happened. And I realized that at my lowest point in hospital after my surgery, it was really all about surrender. But you're constantly surrendering, right? Is a constant letting go, I think. And even now I feel it with my business, that really the universe has a better plan for me than I've got for myself. Of course, we need to plan and we need to take steps forward with our business. But actually, sometimes when one door closes, a way better one opens. And I think you don't know that unless you really surrender to the universe. And that book is just a really great kind of memoir and story about that surrendering process, and I really loved it. Plus, I think he's a great writer, and he makes it super accessible. And I think he describes a moment of awakening quite early on in that book, which I love because I found it so relatable. And it's all about when he's talking to, I think it's his brother-in-law, someone who's a very successful lawyer or law grad, and he sees himself having this conversation, and he's talking, and in his mind he's planning the next thing he's going to say to this guy to sound clever. And I so related to that because I was like, yes, I really understand that. And it really made me see that separation of, self and thoughts. And I've never been able to see that before. So many people describe it, every great teacher describes that. But I found it to be a really good way of seeing how I could do that and how it happens in life. I really liked that. But yeah, his message about surrender, I just think is super important, and it's just a lovely read.
Amazing. Thank you. I've read another book by him, but I'm planning to read that one next, literally over this Christmas period. So
nice.
It's lovely to hear that background, and I'm so looking forward to diving in.
Oh, enjoy it.
Yes. And so lastly, where's the best place for listeners to find you online?
Yes. So they can go to @Fertility Circle, which is our Instagram account. And we put lots of lovely things on there, lots of fertility tips, of course, but lots of just kind of lifestyle and holistic wellness tips on there too. So I'd say generally online, head to @Fertility Circle on Instagram. If anyone's experiencing fertility issues, then please do download the app. We would love to see you in there. And if you want to download the app, you can just go to the App Store or to the Play Store and search Fertility Circle, and you will find us there. We would love to see you in there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Abi. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this episode inspiring. I just listened to the audiobook of The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer in the last week after recording this episode with Abi, and I highly recommend the book too. I have been practicing surrendering to the flow of life and accepting that everything that comes brings learnings we need, and that resistance only holds us back the whole of this year. The book is a very digestible and inspiring demonstration that the universe has a plan for us that is bigger than anything we could have put together ourselves, maybe in ways we could not have expected or designed. I love how this not only enables you to be open to the opportunities presented by life, it also reduces anxiety and fear hugely as you really trust your journey and allow it to flow. I love how Abi's approach with the Fertility Circle focuses on bringing together holistic and clinical approaches to fertility in one place. It can be challenging to navigate these different approaches when it comes to our health, but as Abi's own journey shows us, we can benefit a great deal from an open mind and listening to your intuition. Abi talked about success as now meaning to her what is internally right for her and externally helping others. She also talked about the importance of living a flexible life around her family and business. Flexibility has come up again and again with women I've interviewed as perhaps the most important factor for them in living a life that is successful. I believe that this will be a huge topic for many people in 2021 as they look to make transformations, connect with their purpose, and live more true to themselves with their own priorities in the way that they live their life and spend their time. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe now. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and short review. If you think people you know might benefit from listening to Going Conscious, please share it with them. I know I get much of my inspiration from podcasts which are shared with me. For all episodes, our library and more, visit goingconscious.com. Your support to spread this positive message of fulfillment and freedom means so much. As well as hosting Going Conscious, I help conscious entrepreneurs to transition and unleash their power and purpose with my transformation coaching and conscious brand consulting work. Discover more on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. I'd love to hear from you and to talk about your goals, questions, or how we can work together. And if I don't hear from you before then, see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Going Conscious. As always, live your freedom.